Okay, we are live. Welcome to another broadcast of our weekly conversations, casual conversations in cybersecurity. And we're really excited to have James Board join us this week from the UK. And James, would you please just introduce yourself and a little bit about your background, experience, and what you're doing currently now in cyber?
Yeah, so James Board, as was mentioned, I'm now fully independent. So I run my own company doing consultancy and various other bits and pieces.
Congrats.
But previously, I've been almost everywhere in the cybersecurity and IT world. I've had about 20-something jobs in 20 years. So that should say something about it, not through lack of commitment, just through running out of things to do. That's my story, and I'll stick with it. And yeah, decided the time was right to go independent last year, right in the middle of a pandemic. Seemed the perfect time to launch my own business and give up job security. And that's where I am now.
Amazing. Wow. Oh, so you're doing it though. That's amazing.
I'm still doing it today, so it can't have been that bad a decision.
Yeah. Well, can you give us just a little bit of what your consultancy? So I'd like to talk a little bit just about like consultants and where that perspective in cybersecurity, what kind of services you provide, how you go about working with businesses in the cyber world and addressing needs.
So there's 3 approaches that I've come across, and 2 of them I think of as more contracting, but they're all down to solving problems for a business or an organization. 2 of them are come in and be the patch for this problem, which I think of as more contracting. And then what I believe consulting is, and other people I'm sure will disagree, I tend to go in and I will help immediately patch a problem, but then it's making sure that whoever I'm working with, the organization, can take that over. So they grow the ability to handle it themselves, and I get to run off and find exciting new problems elsewhere to sort out, rather than staying on the same one.
Nice. So you're kind of doing like you said, the patching, but then educating basically. So educating and training.
Educating, training, possibly helping to recruit, possibly bringing in technology, whatever might be needed to make sure that that problem can be handled in-house from then on.
Okay, nice. And how is that different from what you're saying? The other 2, you were saying the other 2, and you kind of just alluded to. How would you differentiate the other 2?
It's a bit elitist, might be a bit snobby, but I tend to see those as more contracting. You are there to do a particular job, and you do that job. And when you leave, someone else is brought in to do that job. So that's contracting. Yeah. Whereas consulting is more about giving that advice and guidance. It's mentoring or coaching for organizations rather than individuals. Okay.
Well, what are some of the top things that you're typically people reach out to you for?
I tend to specialize in the security by design side of things. So more of the theoretical simulation side, making sure that security principles are built into whether it's a product or a service or just an environment through the processes and procedures, and also on simulating incident response, which is largely sitting around a table telling horror stories about incident response and getting people through that panic and immediate adrenaline reaction, so that when they have an incident, they've essentially drilled it. So it's drilling through what you would need to do in an actual incident. Those are kind of my 2, not unique, but main offerings. Other than that, bits and pieces such as managed vulnerability management and other more standard services.
Okay. Well, with the cybersecurity by design, I'm curious about more, because I know I hear it a lot in like with IoT, like people are always bolting on security, but so how do you get to the customers then that are creating this that may or may not know they need to do security first or during development?
I would love to know the answer to that. So far, it's been largely through word of mouth or people who've known me before I went independent. That's a great way to do it. So because I've done this sort of work, if someone who knows me goes and works for one of those customers, they might give me a phone call and say, oh God, we really, really need you to come in. That's usually the way, which is unfortunately not particularly reliable, and means that I can't reach anyone who doesn't know that they need what I do.
Right.
So that's a challenge I'm working on overcoming. I'm trying to learn how to do the whole marketing sales piece myself, because I don't have a sales team, don't have a marketing team. So I'm everything to everyone in the company.
Yeah, it's a lot of hats. I know it's a lot too on you to then give you time to do what you actually are the professional at. I know. So a lot of your struggle too is you have to educate, and that's one of the most challenging. I think is when you have to educate the market about the need for you, because they're just clueless. And I mean, similar to cyber awareness, right? The vast majority of regular users, we have to educate them about the necessity of, upping their cyber savvy, as I like to say. And it's not an easy thing, because people kind of don't care. They're apathetic, or they just don't see the point. And I know, like in IoT, I hear a lot of, the conversations on LinkedIn that I follow, I hear a lot of the similar, challenges, I think. So that is an interesting question. How do we get to those manufacturers and the developers and designers to know they need to incorporate this in the process?
Yeah, if anyone has an answer, I'd love to hear it. I'm trying different things. I present at conferences, I do networking, I put out content, I have rubber ducks with logos on them that I
wanted to ask
people. Please tell us more.
So the rubber duck thing,
genius.
right? The rubber duck thing. There's this idea in software development, programming, of what's called rubber duck debugging.
Okay.
But the concept is you've hit a problem. Rather than going around and yelling about it to the whole office and distracting everyone, the first thing you should do is walk up to a rubber duck just in a corner somewhere and explain the problem to that duck in terms it will understand.
Okay.
90% of the time, you will walk away with the answer. So
Nice.
All I did was found some rubber ducks, stuck a logo on them, stuck an instruction manual basically explaining those steps, and called it something like a budget self-service consultancy solution, and just started giving them out free. So I've still got a load of them to give out. So if anyone wants one, then just drop me a message and I can get one shipped over.
I'll do that, because I'm my husband's rubber duck. He comes to me with like a coding thing, and I'm just like,
yeah.
And then he talks, and then he goes, okay.
Yeah. And it's not just for coding. It works for almost anything. And it's because that process of breaking the problem down and explaining it and focusing on it so that you can relate it to someone else, takes you out of that spiral in your head of, oh God, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? I don't know how to do this.
Right.
And when you explain it, you understand it better. It forces you to understand it.
I think totally. I think Ayelet and I do that to each other a lot too.
I know, like, one of the marketing hacks I've been told before, was write your mission in a Twitter text, right? It has to fit within a Twitter character count. Otherwise, it's too complicated. And also we say, marketing, if you can't explain it to your grandmother where she can understand it. But I really like the idea of even just the physical idea of the rubber duck, and you have to go, because even just that physical, psychology that happens, that's really interesting.
Yep, it also gets you to move away from the desk, so it breaks that chain as well. It's just about disrupting.
It's like how you stand up and pace, right? A lot of us do that when we're thinking. A lot of us go to the fridge too, but I need your duck, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yes,
I'll get one over to you.
No, I think it sounds cool. And then when people have a problem, they see you. They're talking to something that has your logo. It's really smart.
I mean, it is a marketing tool, so it's got my logo and it's also got a contact email address. So the idea is, if the duck doesn't give you the solution, you get in touch.
Exactly.
Yes.
Perfect.
That's fabulous. One of the brainstorm ideas I've had in trying to think through, even though I'm not a cyber practitioner, of this issue about security, building it in by design, is actually like going to like the I just went completely blank. This is amazing. Going to like the incubators, right? The startups, you know, those different things, and building in relationships with the VCs and educating the VCs so they know that when they're doing their due diligence, this needs to be one of those critical aspects when they're taking in, you know, profiles of these different companies they're looking to invest. Because if the VC is going to require it, then the company is going to prioritize it.
A lot of them do now. A lot of them do now, because if you invest in something and then, you know, it's not sound, it's, you know, that's going to cost everybody.
It's similar to the insurance problem, because in insurance companies that offer cyber insurance, and I'm going to be quite blunt here, most of them don't really understand security. So they are just giving people the insurance. And VCs, I suspect it's a similar thing, and it's because of there is a genuine shortage of people at the level in security who can do that sort of work and are willing to. I think the estimate I saw in the UK is there's 46,000 people in specialist cybersecurity roles. So this is ignoring people with partial responsibility. Of those 46,000, 30,000 of them are in large cybersecurity vendors. So you've then got 16,000 people to cover everything else. So there just are not enough people there to do these things and to provide that due diligence expertise. So it's one of the reasons why there's almost a flip side to the marketing challenge, in that I could easily, if I hit on that successful marketing strategy, I am going to have far more work than I can actually do. I'm at a comfortable level now, and a large part of the reason I'm pushing to try and reach more people is because a lot of the things that happen in security or go wrong in security are easy to fix. They're very simple. It's often a 10-minute, 20-minute conversation. So even if I can just have those conversations more, that's fantastic. I've helped people with security. They might come back at some point in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
But there just aren't the people to do that due diligence. So it's not really forcing companies to do the right thing with security. It's currently creating a pressure to just have the right standard ticked off.
What do you think would be a motivator?
Well, if insurance companies and VCs actually start doing genuine due diligence assessments rather than saying, do you have this security standard? Oh, great, you did. You had an auditor come in for 6 hours and they went through their checklist and then left.
That's wild. Well, I guess it's not wild. Insurance companies, kind of a mafia thing. But in theory, in principle, insurance companies should want to do that, right? Because they want any reason. They don't want to take risk, right? They should be risk averse, but they probably plan on denying your claim anyway, I guess, so it wouldn't matter. But if they plan to be a good insurance company, it would make absolute business sense to do that, you know.
But only if you know that you're not doing it well. It's do you know the Dunning-Kruger curve?
Oh yeah.
We're right on the left piece of stupidity side of it for a lot of places. Interestingly, about insurance companies, AXA recently said they will no longer be paying out for ransomware claims. So that says to me that at least one has figured out what's going on and is looking to fix it.
There's too many of these. Some people aren't doing stuff right, and they're going to stop paying. But you know, in theory, you can provide the insurance and pay for client. It's kind of like, right, if you're in a car accident and it was found out you didn't, use your indicator, then they're not going to pay, right?
Yeah.
And you know, the insurance companies, you know, could be a good force actually for holding people accountable, maybe, for good practices. I hate to give any credit to insurance companies, but you know, just in theory, that would be nice. I mean, other than that, what do you think could, like, especially the smaller companies, and what could be motivating startups and
startups? It's going to be that VC due diligence, doing that actual, not just saying, do you do security? Yes, great, but we're going to spend some time digging into what you do for security, and as a condition of me investing in you, I'm not a billionaire VC person, sadly. But as a condition of me investing, you need to prove to me, or you need to prove to my security person, that you are doing the right thing. Not just paying it lip service, you've actually embedded it throughout the organization, you've thought about it. And if you haven't, that's fine, but we will give you the support through that investment to build up that capability. So it's due diligence. Don't give people money if you're not sure they're secure, unless part of the conditions are making them secure.
But I think also,
sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, I want to hear this too. I'm always like
small businesses who just, they just all they stand to lose is profit that they have not yet earned. So maybe it's less tangible or motivating. How do we motivate them?
I don't know. If I had the answer, I'd be rich.
That's the question, Rebecca. Right.
Well, I just saw a post earlier today. The name escapes me. If I can find it, I'll put it in the comments later. And he was saying, it's not a matter of your degree or education for, falling for a scam or a fraud or a hack. In fact, the people that fell for his latest one were like, Harvard graduates, Yale graduates, lawyers, etc. I think maybe, possibly VCs can also fall into, they just, again, not having the education. All they know is I need to, make sure security due diligence is checked off, as opposed to really understanding it personally for themselves, to the degree that a non-cyber person can, to really understand why it's so critical that they make sure it's not just glossed over and just a checkbox. You would think someone who wants to put a lot of money into, an investment is going to, and I'm sure, they try, but again, just that education, I guess that's what I'm trying to come back to, is that education even to the VCs directly. And, maybe it's a conference just for VCs and really telling them and showing them, walking them through, the different aspects.
There's an interesting phenomenon, which is that it applies to fraud, but as an example, people who work in stocks and shares and trades are more likely to fall for investment scams. Because they think they know that world. And then when you introduce something that's to one side and works differently enough, they still carry that confidence over. And I think that probably happens with almost everything, certainly with investments in general, because I've made successful investments, because I've built out technology companies that were successful, I must understand how it's done. And therefore, I won't worry about some of the detail of this because I know it. If it sounds like something I don't know, then I don't need to know it. So people get caught up more when they already have a measure of success and believe that they're right, and they are easier to fool at that point because they'll take half of that on themselves because I know better.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Pride comes before the fall.
Oh. Well, I know, so you were talking about how there is a lack of just personnel, and also your passion for just even training, taking it beyond just doing a contract job, but actually training and making sure the people you leave behind understand and can carry on. And I know you're a tutor at Caps Lock. You want to speak a little more about that and some of what that is?
Yep. So Caps Lock is a cybersecurity bootcamp program. Essentially, it's quite an intensive one. I think I sat down and worked it out, and there's 400 lesson hours that you have to go through. So it's a really substantial program, and that doesn't include all of the extra reading and materials around it. It can either be paid for upfront or on agreements, and it also has an income share agreement option where you pay after you've got a job of over 27K.
Cool.
But the first cohort ran earlier this year. I know that over half of the people who came out of that do now have jobs in cybersecurity, which they're really enjoying because we keep tabs on them and keep an eye on them. But the aim is, instead of being one of these boot camps where it's a 1-week program to teach you penetration testing, which I'm sure everyone's seen, it's a comprehensive overview of the security landscape. So it's governance,
Oh, wow.
and risk and compliance, and pen testing, and architecture, and security by design, and ethics. Everything possible, as much as possible, is covered to a depth that means you can hit the ground running if you go into that role. And so that's the aim of it. And the other part of it is it's for people retraining. So it's to bring people from other areas. And I still love the fact that the first person from the program to get a role, I don't know if you're aware of it, there was a scandal a while ago about Fatima's next role could be in cybersecurity with a picture of a ballet dancer, which was seen to be very much in poor taste, as there was no support for the arts at the time. But the first person from Caps Lock who did get a role got it from being a professional dancer, and he's a lovely guy. So we've got that nice parallel. But that's the aim of it. It's to let people retrain into cybersecurity. It's to let people see cybersecurity is not hard. It's not weird occult knowledge that you have to master through rituals and sacrificing chickens. It's quite easy and straightforward. You just need to pick up the information and put it together and learn the approaches.
Wow. That's really awesome. And so you're giving like a holistic perspective all around, which is beneficial in any role they go to.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot more to security than penetration testing and being a SOC analyst.
I was saying earlier before the live, you know, how I see parallels all the time between marketing and cyber, more in application than anything, but it's one of them. Like, you know, I feel like, you know, marketing has so many different layers to it, and people tend to get myopic and focused on, oh, but we've got to, you know, get these KPIs from these 3 channels. And you're like, no, it's, you know, that's not a successful, you know, marketing, which I see as communication, effective communication. You know, but it's these all, you know, working together, a very holistic perspective. And the more I, you know, gather and read and learn in the cyber world from all amazing professionals such as yourself, you know, how it really is, it has to be holistic. You can't get, you know, myopic on one thing. That it's just this so layered. So I find that that's really awesome what y'all are doing.
Yeah. Well, I'd much rather retrain someone from marketing in doing security training and awareness than I would take a security person and try to teach them that effective communication and learning methods and communication methods, because I can teach them all. I can teach someone all of the security stuff. I can't teach them the rest, and that's not because it can't be taught. It's because I specifically don't know how to teach that. I'm quite good at it, but I don't know the theory. I don't know how to teach it.
I think some of it's instinctual when it comes to marketing. I think there's a certain instinct for it. Then there's a lot of technical stuff, right? Like how, you know, this kind of campaign works, the technology and all of that. But I think with many things, some people have an aptitude or not, right? They have an instinct for communication, or in you know, an engineering sense, they have a certain, the way their mind works, they problem solve a certain way. And you can teach a lot of stuff, but those kinds of skills are harder to teach.
I've never liked the idea that there's talents. I do think there's predilections towards certain ways of thinking.
I mean, like it's personality or the way you're wired, you know, more. But and it's hard to rewire.
I think a lot of the stuff where it's instinctual, because I didn't used to be a good teacher. 15 years ago, I was bad at social stuff, couldn't communicate well and clearly. Hopefully, I've learned how to do that now. Certainly from the feedback I get, I have. So that now feels instinctual. All of those practices, all of those things over a decade, they've become instinctual to me. And a lot of it I could not now explain how I do. So I couldn't teach someone else. So I think that's a lot of what instinctual is. It's habits and skills that we've built up and then embedded bone deep. So we don't necessarily know how we do them anymore.
Right. And I think if you learn something new, that also does nurture your mind, right? If you do puzzles, then your mind gets better at puzzles. You're not necessarily, you know, it's not a hard good at it, not good at it. Definitely.
Yeah, there's this idea, and it ties back to Dunning-Kruger because a lot does, of you start off being unknowingly incompetent at something. So you don't know that you're bad at it. Then you hit the depressing stage, which is that you know you're bad at it when you're trying to do it, and that's when a lot of people give up. Then you hit the stage where if you focus and pay attention, you are good at it. You're learning how to do it. Right. But then the final stage is when you're no longer having to think about it to do it. And that almost becomes a problem because it's very hard to teach something that you don't think about doing. And it's very hard to self-examine if you're not thinking about it.
That's true. I mean, if you can draw on the experience of learning, then maybe you can explain better. I mean, I don't consider myself a natural teacher. I'm not good at, I'm like, I don't know. I just do it. I don't know how to explain it to you. Right. And there are other people who do break it down better, but maybe it's their thought process, maybe when they're learning that helps that they draw on. And it's just interesting to think about, and with the, that Dunning-Kruger's, I think there's also a point though, where you can also have the inverse where it's that, you finally hit that point, so much that you're overwhelmed by how much you don't know. You know enough to know you don't know it all. And it's like, it can be scary. And like, I look at, when you think of something like cybersecurity, I could see a lot of people getting overwhelmed if the teaching isn't done right, you're trying to do a boot camp and it's like, it could be very, but it sounds like you have a very high success rate actually.
So far, I mean, it has just been one cohort, so we'll see how or two cohorts, one full-time, one part-time, and we'll see how the second one does. But it's been very successful so far, and all of the people I've spoken to from the program who've been through it, I won't say enjoyed it. If I say the word cryptography, some of them actually flinch, but they've benefited from it. They've enjoyed it in the sense of they've gained satisfaction from it and had some fun and things, but mainly they do say it's benefited them.
So you're going to be part of it's big part of expanding that 16,000 person flock in the future.
Well, the problem is that automating it wouldn't really work. It focuses a lot on having the instructors actually there to work through problems with you and support, so it's in person and offer guidance. It's remote in person, so you've got a pair of tutors there throughout the session who will support and help and are there to give the information. And it would not work without that because everyone needs different support throughout, and you need a human there to do that. You can't do that in some online course.
Right. Totally. And so, I mean, I guess COVID didn't get that down too much. All right.
No, it's because it's all remote, but in person, effectively.
Well, we have just a couple of minutes left, and I always like to kind of ask what either you've seen that were pleasantly surprised from a marketing, efforts, or that just really was off-putting, you can't stand, and feel free to do a quick 2-minute rant.
Probably
marketing or sales.
Yeah, the most successful marketing I've seen is someone who years ago contacted me and built up a relationship. And I think it was then finally last year I actually bought from them. So really playing the long game there. So that relationship has come out really well for them. And I didn't actually buy from them myself. I was advising a customer to buy from them because I knew that their solution would work. I knew that they were reasonable. I trusted them, and it worked well for everyone. So that relationship marketing where you are building that network and those connections, I genuinely think is probably my favorite way to do it. I won't say it's necessarily the most successful. It's certainly the way I try to do it, and it's the way I've got all of my work. It's through that word of mouth, through that network.
That's the best way,
that's the big thing for me, that relationship marketing.
I think that, and that's the challenging part for like the marketing teams that are, supposed to scale, right? They're supposed to scale everything. And it's very challenging to scale a relationship when you we're humans. We can only really build relationships with limited amounts of people, even with digital. That definitely a challenge, but definitely something that I think
it pays
is
off
really
because
important.
It's I don't want to say pyramid scheme, but people tell people,
The ripple,
you know,
yes,
there's
the
a strong
effect.
it does pay off more than people know. It's just hard to measure that success.
It is.
Not like
it
an ad
is.
campaign, you know. So
Right. Well, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, aside from that, rubber ducks, best marketing tactic I know.
Definitely.
I love it.
I think it's probably one of the best I've heard of ever. So
I really, yes,
support.
I think that is awesome. Okay, well, you also, we didn't get to talk about it, but you also host a weekly, is it a weekly digital meetup?
Yep, so every Thursday morning for a couple of hours, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. UK time, just an open office that people can pop into, chat to each other. It's not a formal thing. It's grab a cup of coffee, see who's there, have a conversation.
Nice.
Right. Very cool.
Okay, very cool. All right, well, we can put the link to that if you want, also when this in the comments. But thank you so much, James. We won't take any more of your time. We really appreciate the conversation, and it was really insightful, and hope to stay in touch. So we'd love to have you back.
Great talking to you both.
Thank you.
All right, take care.